Usually when we talk about someone digging a grave, it's a pretty somber affair. It marks the end of a story.
Right? It's the final curtain, the period at the end of the sentence. The story's over.
But I've been going through this just massive stack of sources you sent over on 12th century China, and I keep coming back to this one very specific image.
Yeah, the one you mean.
It's the year 1161. We're in the Zhongyan Mountains, and from what I've read, these are rugged, they're isolated, they're cold,
And not a place you'd go for a vacation, no.
and there's a man, a wealthy, educated, 48-year-old man out there digging a grave.
But not for a body. Not
Yeah.
for someone who's already passed.
No, for himself. He digs this thing 10 feet deep, climbs in, piles the earth back on top until there's just a tiny little hole for air, and he hangs a sign outside.
The tomb of the living dead.
It's such a visceral image. It really stays with you.
It does. It's profoundly strange.
It is. And I mean, honestly, if I saw that today, my first call would be to emergency services. I say this is a mental health crisis. This is a breakdown.
A profound one, yes. Someone has clearly hit rock bottom.
But the sources we're looking at today, they're arguing that this specific hole in the ground isn't an end at all. It's actually the birthplace. The seed of one of the most powerful intellectual and spiritual movements in all of East Asian history.
And that's the central paradox of this whole story. That's the origin of Quanzhen Daoism, the way of complete perfection.
Or complete reality, I've seen it translated as.
Yes, both work. To the average person walking by in the 12th century, the man in the hole, Wang Chongyang, he looked like a madman. He looked like someone who had just lost his mind completely.
A failure.
A total failure. But inside that tomb, he was actually engineering a way to survive the total collapse of his civilization.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We're looking at how a midlife crisis in the middle of a war zone led to this radical synthesis of three religions.
And how it led to the invention of something called internal alchemy, which is this idea of turning your own body into a kind of laboratory.
And then, unbelievably, how all of that culminates in a diplomatic mission to Genghis Khan that, and this is not an exaggeration,
Yeah, it really is.
that saved thousands and thousands of lives. It's a wild ride.
It really is. We've got historical analyses of the Song and Jin dynasties, theological breakdowns of internal alchemy or Neiden, and these amazing hagiographies, the spiritual biographies of the founding masters.
And before we get to the guy in the hole, we have to talk about the world he was trying to escape.
Yeah.
Because the context here is not just background noise.
No, it's everything. You can't understand the cure, which is what Quanzhen Daoism claimed to be,
Right.
without first understanding the disease.
And the disease was the state of China in the mid-12th century.
Crisis is, putting it mildly, imagine if your entire world just turned upside down. The Song dynasty, which for centuries had been the absolute center of Chinese culture, of governance, of sophistication, it effectively collapsed in the north.
This was because they were invaded, right?
Yes, by the Jurchen people who established the Jin dynasty. These were invaders from the northeast, from Manchuria. And in 1127, they didn't just win a battle. They conquered all of northern China. They took the capital city, Kaifeng.
And they captured the emperor, the actual emperor.
The emperor and most of the imperial family. It was a national humiliation on a scale that's hard for us to even comprehend. The remnants of the Song government had to flee, just pack up and run south across the Yangtze River.
So if you're living in the north, like our guy Wang Chongyang, suddenly your government is gone. The people in charge are foreign conquerors who speak a different language. They have different customs. The borders have literally moved under your feet.
Exactly. It was a time of profound fragmentation. There was a vacuum of authority. The old rules just didn't apply anymore. The social ladder, the one you'd been told your whole life was the only way up, it was broken.
Which is where we meet our protagonist, Wang Zi. That was his birth name.
Yes, we know him later as Wang Chongyang, but at this point he's Wang Jie. And the sources paint a really interesting picture of him. He wasn't some kind of hermit from birth. He was a guy.
He was a very capable guy, born in 1113 in Shaanxi province into a pretty wealthy family.
So he had resources, he was educated in the Confucian classics, the foundation of all learning, and he was physically formidable. The texts all say he was an accomplished martial artist.
So he's got brains, he's got brawn, he's got family money. He sounds like the kind of person who should be running the show, not digging a hole.
He certainly thought so. And this is what we need to pause and talk about: the civil service exams, the Keiju.
Right. And it's hard to overstate how important these were, isn't it?
Impossible. To a modern listener, failing an exam sounds like, oh, bummer, I didn't get the job at the bank. But in Song Dynasty China, the Qiju was the defining mechanism of your entire existence.
It wasn't just a career choice.
No, it was your identity. It was your family's honor. There was no real aristocracy of birth, like in Europe. The only path to power, to respect, to tax exemptions, to bringing glory to your ancestors, was passing this unbelievably difficult series of tests.
I read that men would study from the age of 4 until their 40s. Families would pool their entire fortune just to support one student.
The pressure was unimaginable, and Wang Zi, he failed.
The sources are a bit hazy on the specifics, right? Whether he failed the literary exams, or maybe he passed the military ones but could never get a decent post.
The outcome was the same. He was rejected by the state. But you have to remember the context. He's trying to get a job with a government that is either falling apart, or he's trying to serve the new Jurchen overlords who, don't really trust the local Chinese scholars anyway.
That is just a perfect recipe for a midlife crisis. You've done everything you were supposed to do, you checked all the boxes, but the reward you were promised never came. And on top of it all, you're living in an occupied territory.
Exactly. So he's pushing 50. The texts say he's drinking heavily. He's working some minor bureaucratic job he hates. By all Confucian standards, which emphasize service to the state and carrying on the family lineage, he is a total abject failure.
A waste of space.
A waste of his family's investment. And in the Quanzhen narrative, the story the religion tells about itself later on, this failure is framed as a necessary dissolution.
Meaning it had to happen.
Yes. If he had succeeded, if he had become a general for the Jin or a governor, he would have just been another cog in the machine of a broken, corrupt world. The failure forced him to stop looking outward for validation. It forced him to ask, if the world is fake, if this system is a lie, then what's real?
Which leads us to the summer of 1159, the mystical tavern encounter. I have to say, I just love that the turning point for this huge spiritual movement happens in a bar.
Well, it's a very Taoist setting, isn't it? A tavern by the Ganhe River. So Wang is 48 years old, probably drinking away his sorrows, feeling sorry for himself. And in walk 2, or sometimes the story says 3 strangers.
And the sources identify them as legendary immortals, right? Like figures from folklore. Lu Dongbin is one of them.
That's the tradition. These aren't stiff officials or solemn priests. They represent the erratic, the free-spirited, the wild nature of the Tao, and they see Wang, this broken man, and they see something in him. They engage him.
And they give him something. What exactly do they give him?
They give him secret formulas, a heart lamp transmission.
Okay, heart lamp. Is that a physical object? A scroll?
No, it's a metaphor for direct spiritual transmission. The idea is that the light of truth was passed directly from their consciousness to his. It bypassed the books, it bypassed the rituals, it bypassed the whole messed up political state of the world. It was a direct line to the divine.
It's almost like they were saying, forget the government exams, forget the war. The real test, the real work is inside you.
That's exactly it. And the sources say this encounter separated him from the corrupted rituals of the time. He had a moment of profound realization that the established religious institutions, the Buddhist monasteries, the official Taoist temples, were just as broken as the political ones. They were all part of the same fake system.
So he gets this divine download, and he drops everything. And this is the part of the story that makes him hard to root for, honestly. He abandons his family.
He does. His wife, his children, he just walks away.
In modern terms, that is. That's deadbeat dad territory. But in Confucian China, with its emphasis on family, that must have been an absolute scandal.
It was the ultimate sin. Filial piety is the root of all virtue in that culture. You care for your parents, you raise your children, you honor your ancestors. To just walk out, that's a profound rejection of the entire social contract.
So how did the later Quanzhen text justify that? Is he presented as a villain for this?
No, not at all. In the hagiographies, the spiritual biographies, this is presented as cutting the bonds. The argument is that his family, his wealth, his status, all of that was part of the red dust.
Red dust.
It's a classic Taoist and Buddhist metaphor for the illusory, transient world of sensory affairs, the noise, the chaos, the ambitions of mortal life.
Yeah.
To find what they called the real, he had to leave the fake.
It's a convenient argument for him, though, isn't it? I'm leaving you all for your own spiritual good.
It is, and we probably shouldn't let him off the hook too easily. It was a radical, arguably destructive act from a conventional perspective. But from his new perspective, staying home and being a miserable, drunk, failed official wasn't helping his family anyway. He believed that by leaving, he was trying to achieve a spiritual transcendence that would ultimately bless them more than his physical presence ever could.
He had to kill the old Wang Zi to become Wang Chongyang.
And that's exactly what the tomb was for. When he dug that grave, he was simulating his own death. And when you're dead, you don't have a wife, you don't have kids, you don't have a failed career, you're free.
So let's go back to the hole in the ground, the tomb of the living dead. He stays there for 3 years. Why a grave, specifically? I get the meditation and the isolation, but why not a cave? Or just a simple hut?
I think it works on 3 distinct levels, and this is what makes it so powerful as a symbol. First, there's the psychological level.
The ego death.
Right. It is the ultimate renunciation of the ego. By calling himself a living dead person, he is killing off Wang Zhe, the guy who failed the exams. He's killing off the ambitious man who wanted to be famous and powerful. It's a performance of his own death.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, there's the spiritual level. This is the incubator. This is where he begins the intense internal cultivation, the alchemy we're going to talk about. It's a womb for his spiritual rebirth. But the third level, and I think this is often overlooked, is political.
Political? How is it hiding in a whole political?
Remember, he's living under an occupation. The Jurchen Jin are the rulers. By declaring himself dead, he's making a profound statement. He's saying, I am not a subject of your empire. The dead don't pay taxes. The dead don't follow your orders. The dead aren't on your census rolls. It was a profound act of passive resistance.
That's fascinating. It's like a hunger strike, but with existence itself. You can't control me because, as far as you're concerned, I'm not really here.
Precisely. And after 3 years in the tomb, he moved to a hut he built nearby, which he called the Hut of Complete Perfection. He stayed there for another 4 years. So that's 7 years of intense, isolated cultivation.
But he didn't stay there forever. That's the key transition, isn't it?
That's the whole point. He didn't just remain a hermit. At the end of the 7 years, he had another vision, burned his hut to the ground literally, and traveled east to the Shandong Peninsula to start preaching.
He crawled out of the graves to build a movement.
And that movement was built on a very specific, and at the time, very new idea, San Chao Hei, the harmony of the 3 teachings.
This is the complete perfection or complete reality. What was he completing?
He was completing the picture. At the time, this was hugely controversial. You had Daoism, Buddhism, and Confucianism, and they were generally seen as rivals. People would argue constantly about which one was superior.
Like modern political parties or sports teams. You're on one team or the other?
Oh, they fought bitterly. There were imperial debates, texts written to slander each other. It was a real intellectual battleground.
Yeah.
Wang Chongyang looked at all that and said, "You're all missing the point. Stop it. They aren't rivals. They are branches of the same tree."
The sources use that wonderful analogy of a tripod.
Yes, a ding, which is an ancient Chinese ritual vessel. It has 3 legs. Wang said the 3 teachings are the 3 legs of the tripod that holds up the truth. If you try to remove one leg, if you say only Taoism is true or only Buddhism is true, the whole vessel topples over. You need all 3 for balance.
So how did he actually combine them? Was it just a kind of best of album, picking and choosing bits he liked? Or was there a system to it?
There was a very clear system. It was incredibly functional. He wasn't an abstract philosopher. He was trying to create a practical curriculum for human transformation. He looked at what a person actually needs to survive and thrive in a chaotic world.
Let's break down that curriculum. The sources say his followers were required to study 3 main texts. First, the Taoist one, the Tao Te Ching.
Right. That's the foundation. That gave them their cosmology, their understanding of the origin of the universe, the nature of reality, and the concept of wu-wei, or effortless action. You could say that's for understanding your relationship with nature and the cosmos.
Okay, then the Buddhist text, the Heart Sutra.
Yes, specifically from the Chan or Zen school of Buddhism, which was very influential at the time. That was for training the mind. It taught mental discipline, meditation techniques, and the profound concept of emptiness, sunyata. If you're going to sit in a grave for 3 years, you absolutely need the mental toolkit of a Buddhist monk to not go insane.
And finally, the Confucian text, the classic of filial piety.
And this might seem like the odd one out, but it was crucial. This was for living in society. Even if you're a monk living in a monastery, you're still part of a community. You still have parents, you have ancestors, you have a relationship with the state. Confucianism provided the ethical framework for social harmony and moral conduct.
I see. So it's a complete system. Taoism for the body and the universe, Buddhism for the mind, and Confucianism for your behavior in the world.
Exactly. It was brilliantly pragmatic. He basically said, To survive the 12th century, you need the ethics of a Confucian to navigate society without causing trouble. You need the mind training of a Buddhist to stay calm amidst the chaos. And you need the life force cultivation of a Taoist to stay healthy and live a long life.
And the goal of all this mixing and matching, the sources keep mentioning this phrase, clarity and stillness.
Qingjing, that's the core practice. The ultimate goal was to uncover your true inner nature, or zhengxing. Wang believed that the human mind, our consciousness, is naturally pure. It's like a perfect mirror or a clean window.
Ah, the dirty window analogy.
It's a classic. The light of the Tao, of truth, is always outside, always shining. You don't need to create the light. Your only job is to clean the dirt off the window.
And the dirt is?
The dirt is your desires, your ambitions, your anxieties, your anger, your obsession with passing the civil service exam. If you can wipe all that away through the practice of clarity and stillness, the light of your true nature shines through automatically.
But Quanzhen didn't just stop at cleaning the mind, did they? They took it a huge step further. They believed you could physically transform the very substance of your body. This is where we get into the alchemy part.
Naiden, internal alchemy. This is the real engine of the Quanzhen school.
Now, I've heard of alchemy before. You know, the medieval European idea of turning lead into gold. But this is about the body.
Right. And to understand how radical this was, you have to look at what came before it. For centuries, Taoist emperors and dedicated seekers were obsessed with white-in external alchemy. They were literally trying to brew a potion of immortality in a physical cauldron.
Using some pretty dangerous ingredients from what I've read. Things like cinnabar.
Cinnabar, which is mercury sulfide, essentially mercury ore. They were also using lead, arsenic, a whole cocktail of toxic heavy metals.
So they were drinking mercury to try and live forever.
And tragically, they were dying from it. The irony is just staggering. Many Chinese emperors likely died from heavy metal poisoning while pursuing a magical elixir of immortality.
So Quanzhen comes along and Wang Chungyang says, guys, put down the mercury.
Essentially, yes. He and his followers engineered a massive shift in focus from Weiden to Naiden. They said, the whole project of external alchemy is a mistake. It's a metaphor. The real cauldron isn't in a laboratory in front of you. The cauldron is you.
Your body is the lab.
Your body is the lab. Your low abdomen, your chest, your head, those are the reaction chambers. And the ingredients aren't lead and mercury. They are the fundamental energies already inside your body.
The three treasures.
The three treasures, Jing, Qi, and Shen.
Okay, we need to break these down properly because I feel like Qi especially gets thrown around in, yoga classes and wellness blogs a lot. But I'm not sure people really know what it means in this original context. And Jing and Shen are probably totally new to most of us.
It's a good idea. Think of it like a state of matter transition. Like water can be ice, liquid water, or steam. It's all H2O, just at different levels of refinement.
Okay, I can work with that.
So Jing is the ice. It's your most fundamental, dense biological fuel. It's associated with your genetic material, sexual fluids, hormones, the physical tissues of your body. It's the raw material, the wax of the candle.
So that's the solid state, the fuel that's in the tank when you're born.
Exactly. And for most people, their entire life is a process of just burning this up. They get stressed, they work too hard, they have excessive sex, they eat poorly, and the ice just melts and drains away. That, in their view, is the process of aging. Wang taught that you can learn to preserve this fuel.
And not just preserve it, but transform it into qi.
Precisely. Through meditation, specific breathing exercises, and lifestyle changes, you apply a kind of gentle heat. You melt the ice into water. Qi is that liquid state. It's the vital energy, the life force that animates the body and flows through the universe.
The famous Chinese character for qi is a picture of steam rising from rice, isn't it?
It is, which is such a perfect image. It beautifully connects the material, the tangible, the rice, to the formless and energetic, the steam. In the Taoist worldview, everything is just qi at different densities. A rock is very dense, frozen qi. A thought is very light, fast-moving qi.
Which brings us to the third treasure, Shen.
Shen is the steam. It's the most refined state of energy. It's spirit, it's consciousness, it's your mind, your awareness.
So the whole alchemical process is about changing the state of your own internal energy.
Yes. And specifically, it's a process of reversion. Think about how a normal human life goes. You start as a baby full of potential, full of Jing. You grow up, you expend that energy in the world, you have kids, you work, you stress out, and eventually you run out of fuel and your body dies. That's the natural outward flow from substance to dissipation.
And Quanzhen wants to reverse that flow.
They want to reverse the entropies. So step one in the lab, you take your jing, that dense sexual and physical essence, and instead of spending it outward, you turn it inward and upward. You refine it. You turn the wax of the candle into the flame. You transform jing into qi.
Okay, so you've got more vital energy flowing through you.
Right. Then step two. You take that qi, that vital energy circulating through your body, and you refine it even further. You gather and raise it up to the higher energy centers. You turn the flame into pure light. You transform qi into shen.
You're enhancing your spirit, your consciousness.
You're creating a powerful, stable, and lucid consciousness. And then there's a third, more esoteric step. You refine the shen until it merges with the void, with the Tao itself. You return to the origin.
And the sources mention this incredible concept called the immortal fetus, which I have to say is a pretty wild idea.
It's one of the most fascinating concepts in all of mysticism. The idea is that through this decades-long process of refinement, you are literally constructing a new, non-physical spirit body inside your physical one. It's a vehicle made of pure, refined qi and shen.
So you're basically gestating your own immortal soul.
In a manner of speaking, yes. They call it the yangshen, the yang spirit, and they believe this is the vehicle that can survive the death of the physical body and travel freely through the cosmos.
But this wasn't just sitting around and visualizing things. The texts are very clear that this required dual cultivation. Xing and Ming. What are those?
This is absolutely crucial. Ming can be translated as life or life force. It's your vitality, your health, the candle wax. Xing's your nature or character. It's your spirit, your consciousness, the flame of the candle.
And you need both.
Quanzhen taught they are inseparable. You can't just meditate all day, Xing, and ignore your body, Ming, because then you'll just be a weak, ghost-all spirit, no substance. Your mind will have no energy to power it.
And you can't just do breathing exercises in martial arts.
No, because if you just cultivate your physical energy, Ming, and ignore your ethics and your mind, Xing, you'll just become a very healthy monster or demon. You need both. You need physical vitality to fuel your spiritual growth, and you need spiritual discipline and virtue to manage that powerful physical energy.
So Wang Chongyang sets all this up. He has the theology, he has the practice, but then in 1170, not very long after he starts preaching, he dies.
Right. And usually that's the end of the story. The charismatic founder is gone and the movement fizzles out.
But Quanzhen didn't fall apart. It exploded. It became a huge movement. And that, according to the sources, is thanks to the seven perfected, or the seven masters.
The Qizhen.
It really seems like Wang Chongyang wasn't just a mystic. He was a pretty brilliant HR manager.
He really was. He didn't just pick 7 random devoted students. He seems to have chosen archetypes. He built a management team that could scale the organization after he was gone.
Let's talk about a few of them, because these aren't just names in a book. They are really fascinating characters. Let's start with Ma Yu.
Ma Yu was designated as Wang's successor. But before he met Wang, he was the wealthiest man in the province, a huge landlord living a life of luxury with his wife, Sun Buer.
And Wang convinced him to give it all up.
It was not easy. The stories are fantastic. Wang essentially moved into Ma Yu's estate and acted like a complete lunatic, getting drunk, breaking things, being a terrible house guest for 100 days.
Why would he do that?
To show Ma Yu that his attachment to his wealth and his comfortable life was a prison. He was trying to shock him out of his complacency. And eventually, it worked. Ma Yu had a realization, and he and his wife both became Wang's disciples and gave everything away.
And because he had that background as a rich landlord, he became the administrator.
Exactly. He knew how to organize people. He knew how to handle money, or in this case, how to organize the lack of money in a monastic community. He established the lay associations that supported the monks. He was the COO of the new religion.
Then you have other archetypes like Lu Chuxuan, who's the tough martial artist, and Hao Datom, who is the scholar, the intellectual. But the figure that really caught my eye and seemed so surprising for a 12th century Chinese patriarchy is Sun Buer.
Yes! The matriarch, Ma Yu's wife.
But she was so much more than just the wife, wasn't she? She became one of the 7 masters in her own right. And she's credited with developing Newton female alchemy.
This is hugely significant. Most religious and alchemical texts of the time were written by men, for men. The standard alchemical model assumed a male body. It was all about refining semen, jing. Sun Buer recognized that women's physiology is different. She adapted the practice.
How so?
She taught that while men begin the alchemical process by refining jing, women begin by refining zhu blood.
And this leads to this practice with the very dramatic name, cutting the red dragon.
Zhanxilong. It refers to a specific set of practices, including meditation, massage, and breath control, with the goal of stopping menstruation.
Now, to a modern listener, that sounds alarming. That sounds unhealthy.
It does to our modern medical sensibilities, but we have to try to look at it through their lens. In the context of internal alchemy, menstruation was seen as a monthly loss of vital energy, just as ejaculation was for men. By stopping the cycle, a woman was believed to be conserving that precious blood energy and redirecting it inward and upward to create the embryo of immortality.
So it wasn't about suppressing womanhood or something like that?
No, not in their view. It was seen as reverting the woman to a prepubescent state of energetic wholeness, just as the men were trying to return to the energetic state of a young boy. And the crucial outcome was that, spiritually, women were on completely equal footing with men. They could achieve the exact same immortality. That was radical for the 12th century.
And her personal dedication was just intense. There's a story in the notes about her deciding to travel to the capital.
Yes, this is a famous, if gruesome, legend. She was known to be a very beautiful woman, and she wanted to travel alone to preach the doctrine. But she was afraid of being assaulted or harassed on the road.
Which was a real danger.
Absolutely. So the story goes, she heated a pan of oil and deliberately splashed it on her face.
Creating severe burns, disfiguring herself.
Yes, destroying her own beauty so that men would leave her alone and she could pursue the Tao without distraction. Now, whether that happened literally or it's a powerful metaphor for destroying one's own vanity, it shows the level of commitment we're talking about. These were not weekend hobbyists.
So you have this dream team of 7 masters. They're spreading the word, establishing temples. The movement is growing, but the world around them is getting even scarier. The Jin dynasty, the occupiers, are weakening. But something much, much worse is coming from the steppes of the north.
The Mongols.
Genghis Khan.
The great conqueror.
And this part of the story, it just plays out like a movie script. It's the year 1219. Genghis Khan is tearing across Asia. Entire cities are being wiped off the map. And somehow, he hears about this wise Taoist sage in a mountain temple in China. He hears about Qi Chuji.
Qi Chuji, another of the original 7 masters. By this point, he's the elder statesman of the group. He's the head of the Longmen, or Dragon Gate, branch of Quanzhen, and the Khan sends a summons, a golden tablet. Come and see me.
Now, where is the Khan at this point? He's not in China.
No, he's on campaign. He's in the Hindu Kush Mountains, in what is modern-day Afghanistan.
And where is Qi Chuji?
He's in Shandong, on the east coast of China.
That is an incredibly long walk.
It is thousands and thousands of miles. Through deserts, over snowy mountain passes, through active war zones, an unbelievable trek.
And how old is Qi Chuji at this point?
He is 71 years old.
To try to imagine that. You're 71, you're living a quiet, ascetic life in a monastery, and the most famously ruthless warlord in history says, walk to Afghanistan and give me some advice.
And he did it. It took him 3 years. He traveled with a small retinue of 18 disciples, and one of them kept a diary, The Travels of an Alchemist, which is how we know so much about the journey. It's one of the great travelogues of history.
So he finally gets there in 1222. He's brought into the Khan's tent, the meeting of the tiger and the dragon. What does Genghis Khan want from him?
He wants what every powerful aging emperor wants. He asks the classic question, "Revered master, you have traveled far. Do you possess the medicine for immortality?"
He wants the magic potion. He thinks Q is an old-school external alchemist who can make him live forever.
Exactly. And this is the moment of truth. This is the ultimate test. If Q lies and gives him some placebo, he might get rich, but he'll probably be killed when it inevitably doesn't work. If he just says no, the Khan, famous for his temper, might just chop his head off out of sheer disappointment.
So what does he say?
He gives one of the greatest answers in diplomatic history. He says, "I have ways to preserve life, but I have no potion for immortality."
That takes incredible courage.
Tremendous courage. But Genghis Khan, to his credit, respected it. He was surrounded by sycophants and yes-men telling him he was a god on earth. Here was this old man who traveled for 3 years to tell him the hard truth. No, you are a mortal man and you are going to die like everyone else.
And Qi didn't stop there, did he? He used the platform he was given.
He did. He gave the Khan a lecture on governance and personal conduct. He used Taoist principles. He told him that to preserve his own life and his empire, he needed to practice mercy and self-restraint. He told him to reduce the slaughter. He essentially said the Tao supports life. If you want to live long, you have to stop killing so many people.
And did the Khan actually listen?
Surprisingly, yes. To an extent, he was deeply impressed. He started calling Q immortal as a term of respect, and most importantly, he issued an edict. He appointed Q Juji as the head of all religious practitioners in China. Taoist, Buddhist, everyone reported to him,
And he gave Quanzhen Taoists tax-exempt status.
which was the absolute game changer. This act ushered in the Quanzhen Golden Age. Because the temples were now tax-exempt and under the personal protection of the Khan's decree, they became sanctuaries, safe havens.
This is the saving thousands of lives part of the story.
This is it. When the Mongol army swept through the rest of northern China a few years later, there was horrific slaughter. But people knew to flock to the Quanzhen monasteries. If you were inside, you were safe. So the Quanzhen masters started handing out ordination certificates like candy.
They were basically saying, here, put on these robes, shave your head, you're a monk now, the Mongols can't kill you.
Exactly. They saved huge numbers of refugees. Slaves, peasants, former officials from the Jin dynasty. It's the ultimate proof that Quanzhen wasn't just about sitting in a cave and meditating. It was the height of their political pragmatism. They engaged with the conquerors to save their culture and their people.
It's an absolutely incredible legacy. But as they say, heavy lies the crown. Success on that scale, it breeds jealousy.
It does. And Quanzhen had become very powerful, maybe too powerful for its own good. During the chaos, they had even taken over some Buddhist temples, claiming they were originally Taoist sites.
And the Buddhists, understandably, didn't like that one bit.
Not at all. And this simmering rivalry boiled over. This led to a series of imperial debates, culminating in the big one in 1281. The emperor by this point was Kublai Khan, Genghis's grandson, and he presided over this formal debate between the leading Buddhist and Taoist scholars.
Who won?
The Buddhists. Decisively. The Quanzhen scholars were accused of using a forged text, a particularly inflammatory one called the Classic of Converting the Barbarians.
I've read about this. This was the text that claimed that Laozi, the founder of Daoism, had actually gone to India and become the Buddha.
Yes. It essentially claims your entire religion is just a spin-off of ours. Your God is actually our guy in a disguise.
Oh, that is a low blow.
Yeah, the Buddhists really, really hated that, and they proved it was a forgery. So the emperor ruled against Quanzhen. He ordered that specific text and others like it burned. The woodblocks used to print them were destroyed. The movement took a massive hit. It was stripped of its power and shrank back from the political stage.
But it didn't die out completely. It just went dormant.
It survived. It retreated into the mountains, into smaller monasteries, and kept the lineage alive for centuries, until the 1600s, during the Qing dynasty.
And this is where the great revivalist comes in, Wang Changyu.
He was a master of the Longmen lineage Qichuji's line, and he looked around and saw that Daoism had become sloppy, that standards had slipped, so he decided to tighten the ship.
The sources mention he introduced a brutal 100-day ascetic training program.
Yes. He standardized the ordination process. If you wanted to be a full-fledged Quanzhen monk, you had to undergo this incredibly rigorous program called the Three Precepts. It was a trial of endurance, discipline, and devotion. No more shortcuts. And this standardization, this rigor, made the Longmen lineage the dominant form of monastic Taoism in China, which it still is to this day.
So let's bring it all into the present. If I go to Beijing today, can I see Quanzhen in action?
You can. You would go to the White Cloud Temple by Yunguan. It was Q Chuji's headquarters after he returned from his trip to see the Khan. His bones are actually buried there.
And it's the official headquarters of the Chinese Taoist Association, right?
It is, the CTA. It's the center of state-sanctioned Taoism in China.
So how has it changed? Are they still teaching people to live in graves and create immortal fetuses?
Well, the lifestyle is still there to a degree. The Quanzhen school is still monastic. The priests and nuns are celibate, vegetarian, and live in the temple. That's what distinguishes them from the other main school, Zengi, which has married priests who live at home with their families.
Okay, so the structure is similar.
But the function has shifted. Today, places like the White Cloud Temple are part of China's soft power. They're cultural heritage sites, tourist attractions, and the alchemy. Well, Naiden is still practiced, but it's often reframed for a modern audience.
Reframed how?
Instead of the primary goal being become an immortal spirit that flies away to the heavens, it's more often marketed as health cultivation, as qigong, as a way to promote longevity, reduce stress, and improve well-being. It's the wellness version of the ancient mysticism.
Which makes it much more palatable to a modern, largely secular society.
Precisely. It's more scientific sounding.
Wow. Okay, so let's just look back at this incredible journey. We started with a man digging a hole in the ground in 1159 because he failed his exams. His entire country was falling apart.
Wang Chongyang, the living dead man.
That hole in the ground became a crucible for a new theology, one that combined the best of everything that was available to survive that chaos.
Sanjiao Hei, the harmony of the three teachings.
That theology created a practice, internal alchemy, that turned the human body into a laboratory for refining energy and consciousness.
Naden.
The inner elixir. And that practice created a generation of masters who were, spiritually and physically strong enough to walk across continents and brave enough to tell the truth to the most powerful warlord on Earth.
And in doing so, they saved their culture.
It is a heck of a story.
Okay.
But before we let you go, I want to circle back to that provocative thought we teased at the very beginning, the idea of the physics of thoughts.
Yes, let's connect those last dots.
So we talked about the three treasures: Jing, the dense matter; Qi, the vital energy; and Shen, the spirit or mind.
Right. Ice, water, and steam.
And we said that in Quanzhen theory, these are not three fundamentally different things. They're just the same thing, Qi at different frequencies or densities.
Exactly. Shen, your consciousness is just highly refined Qi.
So if that's true, then if I sit here and I have a thought of anger, or a thought of compassion, or a thought about what I'm having for dinner, that isn't just something abstract in my head.
No. In this worldview, that thought is a physical event. It is a literal configuration of energy. It has a substance. It has a weight, so to speak, even if it's incredibly subtle.
Which means changing your mind isn't just a metaphor.
It is a literal, physical act of restructuring the energy that makes up your reality. When Wang Chongyang told his disciples to polish the mirror or to cultivate virtues like compassion and stillness, he wasn't just giving them nice ethical advice, he was giving them a physics instruction. He was telling them to physically alter the composition of their being.
You are quite literally what you think.
And if you can refine that thought stuff, that Shen, to a high enough degree, then according to them, you become something that can't be destroyed by the death of the body. You've built something permanent.
That is a heavy thought to leave you with.
Indeed it is.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
It was a pleasure. See you next time.